Hello, my friends, and welcome to the beautiful Henry Cowell Redwoods State Park. My name is Dylan McManus, and I hope that you are ready to embark on an adventure and learn about these extraordinary trees. Once again, my name is Dylan, and I am incredibly excited and glad that you have decided to join me on this adventure. Now, I am an interpreter here at Henry Cowell Redwood State Park. Who thinks they might know what an interpreter does? Does anyone have any idea what the responsibilities of an interpreter are? Well, an interpreter is responsible for explaining why things are important inside the park. The plants, the animals, the rivers, the history. And so, it is my responsibility to try and explain to each and every one of you why these things are important and why we should all care very deeply about them. And so, at the end of our adventure today, I am hoping that I will convince you that redwood trees are amazing and that we should all do our very best to protect them and to care very deeply about them. I think we're ready to get started. As we walk to the beginning of the trail, I want you to think about why redwood trees might be important. Let's all think about that as we get started. Why should we all care about redwood trees? Sound good? Here we go. Okie dokie, we have arrived at the trailhead, or the start of a trail, that marks the beginning of our adventure. I'm quite sure you were able to think about some reasons why we should all care about redwood trees. And I encourage you to hang on to those thoughts, because at the end of our adventure, we are going to revisit that prompt and discuss some of the things that you came up with. So try your very best not to forget. I am here at the entrance to the forest, which is indicated by this massive piece of wood behind me. Believe it or not, this enormous piece of wood came from a redwood tree that fell down a long time ago. Now that's okay, because it is still teaching us something very important about redwood trees. Who thinks they might know what this piece of redwood is trying to communicate to us? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with tree rings. What do tree rings tell us about that particular tree? If you said that this piece of redwood is telling us how old it was when it fell down a long time ago, then you are correct. By showing us its tree rings, this piece of redwood is communicating to us its age. Now, the tree rings are all of the tightly packed lines that look a little bit like wrinkles. Now, believe it or not, redwood trees are very similar to people in this sense. The older the tree, the more wrinkles or tree rings. Every wrinkle or tree ring equals 1 year. And so together, you and I are going to count all of the tree rings on this piece of redwood to learn exactly how old it was when it fell down a long time ago. To make sure that we count every single tree ring, we are going to start on the bottom and slowly work our way all the way to the center. We're also going to use a handy dandy magnifying glass. I'm hoping that you'll count along with me. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. How long would it take us to count every single tree ring? All day? All week? A whole month? An entire year? We cannot possibly count every single tree ring. This redwood tree was so incredibly old when it fell down a long, long time ago. 2,200 years old, as a matter of fact. That means that there are 2,200 tree rings on this piece of redwood. Now that is an old tree. And so, this tells us that redwood trees can live to be very, very old. If they were our grandparents, they would be our great, 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 25 times great grandparents. How do they do it? How can redwood trees possibly live for such a great period of time? Well, redwood trees have many special characteristics that we here at the park like to call superpowers of the plant world. Another name for this is adaptations. These superpowers of the plant world, or adaptations, help the redwood trees live to be very, very old and ensure that they have a life of prosperity. Let's continue on our adventure and learn all about these superpowers of the plant world. Cowabunga! We have reached our first stop, the bear claw tree. Now, the bear claw tree gets its name because the base has the shape and the appearance of a bear's claw. Now, this tree is the tallest tree here at Henry Cowell Redwood State Park, and it stands at a whopping 277 feet tall. Now, this tree has the potential to grow about another 100 feet or so, because redwood trees can grow up to 400 feet tall. Now, to help us understand this enormous number, 400 feet, I want you to look up at your ceiling. I am willing to bet that your ceiling is about 10 feet tall. This means that we would have to stack 40 of those distances from your floor to your ceiling on top of one another, just to be as tall as the tallest redwood trees. That is a massive tree. Because these trees are the tallest living things in this world, they get the most sun. Why do trees need sun? If you said, gee, Dylan, trees need sun because they use it to create their very own food, you are correct. Trees, and all other plants for that matter, take the sunlight and use it to produce or create their very own food. And they do this inside their leaves. The food they create is called sugar. And so, these trees are the tallest living things on Earth, and they get the most sun. If these trees get the most sun, what else do they get the most of? Food, absolutely. Redwood trees are able to create or produce the most sugar. That is the first superpower or adaptation of these trees. They are the tallest living things on this planet, and they can produce the most food. And that, my friends, helps them to live to be so incredibly old. Let's continue to our second stop. Our next superpower or adaptation is my absolute favorite because it is not something that we can see with our eyes. It is happening beneath our feet. Any idea what might be going on underground? If you said roots, bravo! And not only roots, but redwood roots galore. Let me explain. Redwood roots are a little bit like underground branches. They do not grow deep down into the earth, but instead they grow outwards. Redwood roots usually grow about 50 feet away from the base of the tree. Now I have here 2 ropes. Each rope measures 50 feet in length. That's the same distance as redwood roots. So let's all use our imagination and pretend that these ropes are redwood roots. What we are going to do is tie each rope to a different redwood tree. And then we are going to stretch the ropes all the way out and see what happens. What do we notice about our imaginary redwood roots? Yes, exactly. They are touching. And that tells us that the real-life redwood roots are also touching underground. And so redwood roots are connecting with one another beneath our feet. Is that a good thing? You betcha! Because redwood roots are connected, they can help one another be stable, be balanced, and grow tall, strong, and straight. So redwood trees rely on a community of support. Are these the only 2 redwood trees whose roots are connected underground? What do you think? No way! All of the roots of all the nearby redwood trees are all connecting underground. That most certainly helps redwood trees live to be so incredibly old. And that, my friends, is the second superpower or adaptation. And voila! We have reached our third and final stop on the adventure today. The giant. It's certainly easy to understand how this tree got its name, isn't it? The giant stands at about 275 feet tall, and it is the second tallest tree here at Henry Cowell Redwood State Park. The last superpower or adaptation that we will be discussing is not quite as hidden as the roots, but nevertheless, it can still be difficult to see and to notice. It has to do with the leaves. Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, leaves only provide the tree with sugar, with food. But I am here to tell you that leaves perform many other functions. In this example, redwood leaves actually help the tree drink water. Huh? That's right. And to understand how exactly the leaves help the tree drink water, we first have to understand where the water comes from. And so I am going to ask you a question. Where do we get our water in the winter and the summer? Where does our water come from? If you said rainfall in the winter, you are partially correct. Redwood trees drink a gigantic amount of water, and so in the winter months when it rains a lot, these trees are extremely happy. They drink an enormous amount of water. But in the summer months, they still need a gigantic amount of water. They're still very thirsty. Does it rain a lot in the summer months? No. So how else might these trees get water in the summer? If you said fog, you are correct. Here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, summer mornings are blanketed with fog, and this is where the leaves come in. The redwood trees have figured out a way to use their leaves and turn the fog into a drinking fountain. Now, the shape of redwood tree leaves really depends on where those leaves are growing on the redwood tree. Near the top of the redwood tree, the leaves are quite small and they are a little bit cylindrical. So they look like cylinders, kind of like a straw. They're long and they're circular. In the middle of the tree, the leaves look very different. They're very flat and they're shaped a little bit like a net. Now, these net-shaped leaves are extremely talented at capturing or collecting fog in the summer months, and they are able to turn this fog into a water drip, which is very similar to a drinking fountain. As the water drips to the base of the tree, it is soaked up by the tree roots. Now, this is an example of the net-shaped leaves that grow in the middle section of a redwood tree. Let's all use our imaginations and pretend that I am a redwood tree with my net-shaped leaves and that this is fog on an early summer morning. Let's see what happens when the net-shaped leaves collect the fog. Good. goodness, golly gosh, that's amazing! I bet everyone was able to see how well those net-shaped leaves collected water and turned it into a drinking fountain for the tree. Now, these redwood trees drink about 100 gallons of water during the summer months. 100 gallons of water, that's just like 1,600 water bottles every single day. Holy cow! That's a thirsty tree. And these net-shaped leaves allow the tree to drink throughout the year, even during the dry summer months. These leaves definitely help the redwood trees survive and live to be so very old. That is the third superpower or adaptation, the net-shaped leaves. Wowee. Whew. This marks the conclusion of our adventure today and the conclusion of our discussion of just some of the special characteristics that redwood trees have that help them live to be so very old. Can anyone remind me, what do we call those special characteristics? Superpowers of the plant world and or adaptations. Correct. We learned that redwood trees are the tallest living things on Earth, and because they are the tallest, they receive the most sun and produce the most food. We also learned that redwood trees have lateral root systems, or roots that grow outward instead of down. Last but not least, we learned that redwood trees have leaves that help them drink enormous amounts of water, even during the dry months. Now, we have only talked about the tip of the iceberg. There are many more superpowers or adaptations that these trees have. And so, I encourage you to reflect on our adventure today and try to think of some more special characteristics or adaptations or superpowers that these trees might have, and how do those things help them live to be so incredibly old. We have also learned that redwood trees are very good at protecting themselves and allowing themselves to live to extreme ages. Now, just because these trees are very good at doing those things, does that mean that we should not help and do our very best to protect them? No, definitely not. It is important for all of us to do our absolute best to protect these trees, because the biggest threat that they face is us, is from people. Over the last 150 years, people have cut down almost all of these gigantic redwood trees. People have also polluted the air. And so, it is very important for all of us to do our very best to protect and respect these precious redwood trees. How can we do that? How can we continue to help these redwood trees? Who has an idea? Well, the easiest thing we can all do is share our stories. People have been visiting this forest for 170 years, and when those visitors left, they would share their stories, and their stories would invite more visitors, and all those visitors kept this park alive. And so, it is very important that we all share our stories with our friends and our family. And so I challenge you to tell a family member or a friend just one thing that you loved about this adventure, one thing that you learned. That is the easiest thing that we can all do to continue protecting these redwood trees and this redwood forest. You can also practice sustainability. Now that's a big fancy word, but it simply means that you should turn off lights when you are not using them. You should unplug appliances and things that you aren't using. You should do your best to ride a bike every now and again, recycle, things like that. All of those practices make a huge difference, and it's up to all of us. Last but not least, this is a California state park, which are public lands. What does the word public mean? Does that mean that this forest belongs to me? Does it belong to everyone who works here? It belongs to all of us, to each and every one of us. And so it really is up to us to protect these trees and make sure that we give them our respect. This is your forest. Once again, my name is Dylan, and from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on today's adventure. I sincerely hope that you learned a thing or two and that you enjoyed yourself. Farewell, friends.